Look at all these wonderful umbrellas. Aren't they beautiful? Can you guess which is my favorite? That's probably tough, so let me give you some clues. Well, the one I like best is multicolored. And you know what? It also has a curved handle. Still too many. How about it's mostly purple? I bet you figured that one out, didn't you? Which clue was the most helpful? When there are an awful lot of nouns, sometimes we need to help distinguish them from each other or give a better description. And when we use the words that help us describe nouns, those are called adjectives. Adjectives add to our understanding of what a noun is like. So I want you to put your thinking caps on for a moment and think of some describing words. Look around you at the nouns in your space, and what are some words you might use to describe them? You can also look at these images for some ideas. Let's look at each word one at a time and think of a good adjective for it. We'll start with the word sun. You might have thought yellow, gold, or even swirly. Think about the cat and the bow tie. How would you describe them? Well, you might say that the cat is black. Maybe you've noticed that the cat seems happy or content. Means it's satisfied. Of course, the easiest way to describe that bow tie is orange, although there would be other adjectives you could use as well. There was also a really sweet little penguin. I wonder what words you would use to describe that penguin. Think of the nouns first. There's the penguin, the hat, the scarf. Now, how would you describe them to help people recognize that penguin? Maybe the penguin looks cold or it's cute. And the hat, I bet you figured out right away the easiest way to describe it. It's certainly blue, but maybe you also thought that it's a warm-looking hat. It has that winter pom-pom on the top. After that, we also had a beautiful purple shooting star. Now, can you think of some noun? Well, we know the noun actually. It's a star, but can you think of some adjectives to describe it? Take a moment and jot them down. Now, in addition to the star, there was also a little girl. Now, this little girl has a flower, and she's wearing a dress. She has barrettes in her hair. A lot of nouns you can work with. I want you to write down some of the different adjectives you might use to describe the flower, or her dress, or her. Now, just like nouns are people, places, things, and animals, adjectives can be characterized too. And so one of the things we're going to do is we're going to practice identifying our nouns and our adjectives together. Let's read the sentence that comes up together. The cats are silly. Which word is the noun in that sentence? That's right, it's cats. Now there's a word in here that's an adjective. It describes the cats. Which word is that? That's right. The word that describes the cats is silly. The cats are silly. Well done. So we're going to try another sentence. Are you ready? The snow is soft and fluffy. So first, let's pick out the noun. What is the thing? It's the snow. Now, there are two adjectives that describe the snow. Can you spot them? One of them is pretty easy. It's soft. The snow is soft. What's the next adjective? The snow isn't only soft, it's also fluffy. Well done. We're going to have a third sentence now. Now, this one is going to be a little more challenging. And you can see that because I'm already giving you a hint with comparing. The white cat is smaller than the black cat. So cat, of course, is the noun. We've seen cat a few times now. So there are a few adjectives. Can you find 3 of the adjectives? White, of course, is one of them. A white cat, so white describes the color of the cat. Then there's another cat, that's a black cat. So we have a white cat and we have a black cat. And then we compare them. And that's the word smaller. When we see a word like smaller, a comparing word, it is also an adjective. So this sentence has 3 adjectives in it. White, smaller, and black. Adjectives can be tricky that way. There can be lots of them. So when you're looking at sentences later and practicing, always look for any word that helps describe a noun. You're doing really well so far, and soon you put your skills to the test. So a few examples of comparing words are things like smaller, larger, slower, faster, softer, sillier, taller, shorter, funnier, quicker. Can you see the pattern? They all end with an ER when we're comparing. Now, you know how I love tips and tricks. Well, here are some tips for identifying adjectives. We have the what kind of adjectives and the how many adjectives. What kind are things like a shape, a sound, could be color, might also be size, feeling, that could be an emotion, or smell. Could also be to do with taste or texture, something you touch. Now, if you look at that, what adjective comes to mind? Silly, right? Or how about this duck? I bet you think it's fluffy and cute. Those are what kind of adjectives? Then we have the how many. And those are things to do with numbers. Numbers like 1, 2, 3, or first, second, and third. Numbers also have a different way of being represented, and we call that quantity. And we might look at the fact that there are lots, or some, or many, or few of something, like in this picture of clementines that you're about to see. There are lots of clementines in that picture, aren't there? Now we're going to come back to the ER, the comparative. And that's when we add the ER plus the word than. When we compare two things, we say that something is bigger or smaller than something else. And it's really important to make sure it's THAN, not THEN. THEN is like the word when, and it has to do with time. THAN is the one we use for comparing. And if you can remember that difference, you will impress all of your teachers and your parents. I promise you. So let's look at some different comparative sentences. Lauren is taller than Connor. We know that Lauren is tall, or at least taller than Connor. Taller is the adjective. Connor is younger than Lauren. We could say that Connor is young, and in this case, because we're comparing, we're saying that Connor is younger than Lauren, who's his sister. Piper is fluffier than Sahara. So we're looking at two cats, and we're talking about how fluffy they are, and fluffy is an adjective. Here we're comparing by saying that Piper is fluffier than Sahara. Now, in one of the extra spelling pieces we talked about before, I talked about comparatives, ER, and then we have a fancy word called superlative. And that's when we add an EST. Thinking of super meaning it's the top, the bestest, the greatest, the super duperest. We call that a superlative. And then we're not just comparing. We're saying that one is the most. So let's look at a couple of examples of how some adjectives are superlatives. Ready? Here we go. Lauren is the tallest in her family. And she is. She's taller than her mom and her dad and her brother. So she is definitely tall. How about Connor is the youngest in his family? And that's true. He is the youngest in the family. Piper is the fluffiest of the cats. And that is very true. And now it's time for you to practice using adjectives. And you might go on an adjective hunt in the room you're in using sticky notes or paper, or you can use this picture in front of you. What are some of the adjectives you can use to describe this picture or the people, places, things, or animals that you can see from where you are right now?